The steel doors of Training Hall Bravo slammed shut behind the last squad, echoing through the massive room like a warning. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, bright enough to see every face, but harsh enough to remind everyone this wasn't a place for comfort. It was a place for pressure, failure, and breaking points. 280 Navy SEALs filled the hall, arranged in loose formation after a grueling 12-hour endurance block. Even for elite warriors, the fatigue was real: sweat-soaked shirts, bruised forearms, scraped knuckles, and the dull ache of muscles pushed far past exhaustion. But one figure stood straighter than the rest: Lieutenant Commander Area Hale, 5'7", unshaken posture, eyes that could freeze a wildfire. She wasn't big, but every man in that hall knew she was carved from a different type of steel, one forged in places where many of them had nearly died, and where she'd saved more than a few. Area was silent, observing, arms crossed loosely. She didn't have to speak. Her presence alone put the room at attention. Today, however, the hall didn't share the same respect. Not entirely. Among the platoons, a small cluster of new SEAL candidates whispered among themselves, trying not to be obvious but obviously failing. They watched Area with a mixture of curiosity, insecurity, and something uglier, envy. One of them in particular, Petty Officer Grant Maddox, stood out. He was built like a linebacker, 6'2", 200 pounds of confidence that bordered on arrogance. Maddox had been top of his class during BUD/S, loud about it, proud of it, and loudest about one thing: he didn't believe a woman could outrank him, much less outperform him. He'd said it under his breath since day one. And today, fueled by exhaustion, ego, and an audience of nearly 300 elite soldiers, something in him snapped. Chief Riker, the instructor for the session, stepped aside to grab his notes, leaving the candidates in an informal break, barely 30 seconds of breathing room. It was enough. Maddox stepped forward, shoulders squared, jaw tight. Lieutenant Commander Hale, he called out, voice booming across the hall. Every conversation stopped, heads turned, arms dropped. Even Riker froze mid-step. Area looked up slowly. Yes, Petty Officer. He smirked, the kind of smirk that begged for an audience. You keep giving orders like you've forgotten something. Area didn't blink. And what exactly is that? He stepped closer, too close, challenging her space, trying to provoke a reaction. That I'm not some kid you can boss around. I'm a SEAL, a damn good one, he said. So maybe try showing some respect. A ripple of discomfort spread through the hall. In the SEAL community, direct disrespect wasn't just unprofessional, it was unthinkable, but no one interfered, not yet. They wanted to see how Area handled this. They needed to. Area didn't move. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't even tense. Petty Officer, she said calmly, step back. But Maddox wasn't looking for de-escalation. He wasn't looking for reason. He was looking for dominance, and for the crowd to witness it. Or what? He demanded. Area's jaw tightened a fraction. This is your last warning. Maddox's eyes hardened. Don't forget who I am. A collective breath caught in the hall. Area lifted her gaze, and the temperature seemed to drop. No, she said quietly, you've forgotten who I am. Maddox snapped. Fueled by adrenaline and bruised ego, he surged forward. His hand came up, fast and reckless, fingers curled to strike her shoulder or face. No one would ever know exactly what he intended. But every man in that hall understood one thing. He had just crossed a line no SEAL should ever cross. Area didn't flinch. Her stance barely shifted, and as his hand came down she moved, not with anger, not with fear, but with the cold, precise efficiency of a warrior who had lived through things men like Maddox could only fantasize about. In that split second, 280 Navy SEALs witnessed the moment the confrontation turned into something none of them would ever forget. And the true story began. Maddox's hand came down fast, too fast for anyone else to react, but not for her. Arya Hale didn't step back. She didn't brace. She didn't warn him again. She simply moved. To the untrained eye, it happened in a blur. To the SEALs watching, men trained in thousands of hours of combat drills, it happened with terrifying clarity. Arya shifted her weight a half-inch to the right, letting Maddox's strike fall through empty air. It was the smallest, cleanest dodge imaginable, a technical masterpiece. Maddox had committed to the hit with his entire body. She had avoided it with a motion so subtle it looked like she was just adjusting her balance. But what came next was not subtle. As Maddox stumbled forward from his own momentum, Arya caught his wrist with her left hand, palm open, fingers clamping down with surgical precision. Her right hand shot up, locking over his elbow. Every SEAL in the room recognized the position. Armbar counter, joint lock, no way out, but Maddox didn't. He reacted on instinct. Bad instinct. He tried to yank his arm free. Arya exhaled once, a controlled, steady breath. Then she turned, not violently, not emotionally, just decisively, a clean pivot of her hips, a drop of her center of gravity, a torque of both hands in opposite directions, and then crack. The sound echoed like a snapped broomstick across the training hall. 280 elite warriors froze. Maddox let out a guttural, broken scream as he collapsed to his knees. His right arm hung at an unnatural angle, elbow bent backward in a direction nature never intended. Arya released him immediately. She didn't throw him. She didn't push him. She didn't even look satisfied. She simply stepped back one pace, hands behind her back, posture straight, neutral, professional. In complete control, Maddox wasn't in control of anything. He cradled his destroyed arm with his good hand, teeth grinding hard enough to break. Pain radiated across his face, shock, humiliation, and fury all tangled into something unrecognizable. But Arya didn't look at him. She looked at the room, at every SEAL watching. Her voice was calm, cold, and unshakably steady. "This is why," she said, "you don't strike a superior officer or any teammate." The silence was suffocating. Even Chief Riker, who had seen a decade of combat and 2 decades of training commandos, stood rooted to the floor, jaw tight, eyes wide. He knew Arya was good, one of the best, but this level of precision under pressure, even for her, it was something else. A soft metallic clatter broke the silence. A training knife, foam, taped for drills, slid across the floor where it had fallen from Maddox's belt when Arya twisted his arm. It stopped at Riker's boot, and that's when the whispers began. Holy, did she just? She barely moved. He attacked her, full force. That wasn't a drill move, that was combat. She broke his arm before he even understood what was happening. The whispers spread like wildfire, bouncing off the steel walls, but underneath the shock was something else emerging. Respect, fear, awe. Arya didn't feed off any of it. She crouched beside Maddox, not to comfort, but to deliver clarity. "You brought this on yourself," she said quietly, so only he and the nearest SEALs could hear. "And you did it in front of the entire teams. Don't ever let your pride override your discipline again. It could get someone killed." Maddox glared at her through pain-soaked eyes. He tried to speak, but the words dissolved into a choked breath. Arya stood. "Corpsman," she called. A Navy medic sprinted from the side, sliding next to Maddox with medical gear already in hand. The hall remained completely silent, except for Maddox's staggered breathing. Riker finally found his voice. "Lieutenant Commander Hale," he said slowly, "you want to explain what just happened?" Arya didn't hesitate. "Petty Officer Maddox attempted to strike me," she said. I executed a defensive counter within the bounds of protocol. Riker scanned the hall. No one disagreed, no one dared. He nodded once, understood, but it wasn't the end, not even close, because as Maddox was lifted to his feet and escorted away, the entire hall watched him go, and then turned to Arya. Not with anger, not with judgment, not with uncertainty, but with the unmistakable realization that they had just witnessed something only whispered about in black files and classified rooms. Why Arya Hale was feared. Why she was respected, why she led men who feared nothing, and why Maddox's final words, "Don't forget who I am," had been the most dangerous mistake of his career. The corpsman and 2 senior SEALs helped Maddox toward the exit, his breath ragged, his pride shattered, his arm immobilized with a temporary splint. The echo of his footsteps faded down the concrete hallway until the steel doors finally closed behind him. Only then did anyone else move. A wave of murmurs rolled through the room, low, stunned, electric. It wasn't chaos. It wasn't panic. It was the sound of 280 warriors recalibrating everything they thought they knew about the person standing in front of them. Lieutenant Commander Arya Hale didn't react. She simply stood where she was, hands behind her back, posture straight, eyes forward. Her calmness was unnerving, almost unnatural. Riker blew out a long breath. Platoons, at ease, no one relaxed. They simply shifted their boots a few inches apart, but their focus stayed laser, locked on Arya. Riker scratched the back of his neck and finally said what they were all thinking. "Well, Lieutenant Commander, that was something." Arya didn't smile. It was necessary. Her voice was quiet, controlled, like she wasn't speaking to impress anyone, just stating a fact of physics. Riker looked around the hall, then nodded once. "All personnel, gather in. You need to hear this." The platoons formed a loose semicircle around Arya and the chief. No one joked. No one nudged their buddy. This was the kind of moment you didn't talk over. Riker folded his arms and addressed the room. "Every SEAL here knows discipline is what keeps teams alive. Pride, ego, they get people killed." Lieutenant Commander Hale didn't respond to an insult. She responded to an attack. He paused. And she responded correctly. Heads nodded. No one disagreed. Not after what they'd seen, but Riker wasn't finished. "Many of you know her reputation. Some of you don't. So allow me to explain something very clearly." Arya stiffened slightly, but she didn't interrupt. Riker pointed at her. "This woman has more combat hours than half the officers on this base combined. She served in black, budget units that don't officially exist. She's pulled SEALs out of missions no one was supposed to survive." He swept his gaze over the crowd. "Some of you are standing here because of things she did years before you ever put on this uniform." The hall was silent, heavy silent. Arya exhaled slowly through her nose and stepped forward. "That's enough, Chief." But Riker shook his head. "No, these men need to understand who they're learning from." Arya turned to the platoons, her expression unreadable, some mixture of discipline, discomfort, and the weight of too many classified memories. "You don't need my history," she said. "You need only one thing." Her eyes scanned the room, the tired faces, the strong ones, the stubborn ones, the quiet ones. Respect the uniform, respect the mission, respect each other. A young SEAL in the front row swallowed hard. "Ma'am, with respect, how did you move like that? He's twice your size." A few chuckles slipped out, not mocking her but themselves, a way of releasing tension. Arya's answer was simple, because size doesn't matter, precision does. Another SEAL raised his hand. "Ma'am, have you ever been scared? I mean, really scared?" Her eyes softened for the first time. "Yes," she said, "but courage isn't the absence of fear. It's moving anyway. It's doing what has to be done before fear decides for you." Silence again. But a different kind this time, not shocked, not confused, not intimidated, inspired. Riker clapped his hands once. "All right, listen up. We're adjusting the schedule. Hale will be running a leadership and discipline session before chow, mandatory for all platoons." No one argued. No one groaned. If anything, a ripple of anticipation moved through the hall. As the SEALs dispersed to reset equipment for the next block of training, small groups kept glancing her way, not with hesitation, but respect that wasn't demanded or forced. Earned Area didn't bask in it. She didn't nod. She didn't smile. She simply walked toward the far wall, grabbed a marker, and wrote the session title on the board. Knowing your limits and knowing when to break them. Riker stepped beside her. "You handled that well." She capped the marker. "He'll heal." Riker smirked, his arms sure. His ego, that's another question. Arya looked back at the quiet hall, the SEALs resetting gear, preparing for the next lesson she would teach them. "If it makes him a better man," she said softly, "then it was worth it." Riker studied her face, the calm, the focus, the burden she carried. Then he nodded. The hall learned something important that day. Not that Arya Hale was dangerous. They already knew that. They learned why. She wasn't dangerous because she was stronger. She was dangerous because she never misused it. A leader with discipline. A warrior with restraint. A soldier forged by truth, not pride. And from that day forward, no one ever forgot who she was.